Good evening. I'm Paul Offodds, and it's time for your Royals postseason report. None of today's games have finished yet. As of this recording, the Royals are 2.5 games behind the Orioles for the first wildcard and 1.5 games ahead of the Twins for second in the division and the second wildcard. As of this recording, here are your Kansas City Royals playoff odds. Baseball Reference, 91.4%. Baseball Prospectus, 91.5%, and Fangraphs, 93.2%. The Royals' magic number for any playoff berth is 7. We now return you to your regularly scheduled Royals Rundown podcast.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Royals Rundown podcast presented by Royals Review. I am Jacob Milham, back in the saddle with my good buddy, Jeremy Greco. Jeremy, how are we doing this Wednesday?
You know, on the one hand, the Royals' magic number has not gone down in 2 days, which it's been a while since the magic number didn't go down at all for 2 days. On the other hand, if the Royals win tonight, it would go down by 2.
I'll take it.
And also, you're back. I'm glad to be talking to you again. So that's the stuff that I like is talking to Jacob about the Royals. I missed it.
Yes, it's good to be back here on the podcast. Thank you very much, Greg, for stepping in and talking about some Kansas City baseball with Jeremy Greco. Before we get too deep into it, we do want to thank the folks who make this podcast happen over at RoyalsReview.com. A lot of great content, analysis, and commentary going on over there at the commentary. These game threads have been a little out of pocket over this 3-game losing streak.
Jacob, months ago, I wrote a series of articles that was like, everybody chill out. And no one listened to me then, and no one's listening now. So
yeah, apparently not.
I need everyone to listen to Paul again. Like, if you didn't pay attention, rewind, go listen again. The playoff odds are all over 90% with 10 games left to go. As of this recording, 10 games left in this season. Mm-hmm. That's it. And the Royals, like, you could see it everywhere. This is what all the writers are talking about right now. If the Royals go 4-6, the Tigers have to win 8 games, 8-2 in their last 10. Mm-hmm. If the Royals go 3-7, the Tigers still have to go 7-3. Like, and that would be the Royals playing really bad and the Tigers playing really good.
Yes, it would.
It could happen. It's not 100%, but it's 90%. The odds are very much in the Royals' favor to go to the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, you never know what'll happen.
Exactly. Just need to get that ticket to the dance and find that dance partner, I guess but the bracket will find the dance partner for you. So I don't even know what I'm talking about. But tonight, we are recording this podcast on Wednesday afternoon, a few hours ahead of the series finale featuring the Royals trying to avoid the sweep against the Detroit Tigers and the AL Cy Young favorite Tariq Skubal on the mound for the Tigers. So they have a very steep uphill climb winning on Wednesday. But tonight does mark their final game against an American League opponent this season, which is very strange. They got 3 against the Giants, and then 3 against the Washington Nationals and the Atlanta Braves. So
I'm old enough to remember when the Royals wouldn't play any of those teams in the regular season.
That's something that is just so foreign to me now. Yeah. Like that idea, that concept seems so old, and like that really wasn't that long ago.
No.
Though.
When I started watching back in 1998. They had basically just started interleague play, but it was only within like across divisions. So you would play, the Royals would play the NL Central. They would have 3 games with each of the NL Central opponents, except the Cardinals. They would have 6 with them, a home and home series with them. And so then they added like, okay, now you'll play all 3 divisions on a rotating schedule. And now you play everybody every year. Honestly, I think that if you had told me that 20 years ago or whenever I started watching, more than 20 years ago, holy cow, I'm old. that would have sounded insane to me. But it does actually kind of feel very natural, and it's one of the few kind of changes that have come over baseball in the recent years that I haven't heard anyone complain about.
Yeah, I think it's been a welcome change. It's really taken away the AL versus NL rivalry that it seems like was a very storied thing in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. It's just kind of one big Major League Baseball, and you just need the AL and the NL to decide who goes to the World Series, basically.
Right.
In my mind. But still very fun. I'm not going to complain about the fact like, hey, the Royals now have more opportunities to see who will travel out or who they'll travel to, excuse me. So like now they travel to Washington, D.C. to face off against the Nationals and to Atlanta to face off against the Braves, stuff like that. But we're getting a little down the road. So let's set the table right now because there's a lot of negativity right now, Jeremy. I don't know if you've seen all this, but there's a lot of negative names.
It's hard enough watching the Royals right now without reading what everyone else has to say about them.
Yes, but I will say, Jeremy, I don't blame fans, really.
I do.
For being well. Let me say why I don't blame them. Then,
all right.
Then let's hear why you should. So. Let's look at since 2015. World has changed since 2015. So has the Kansas City sports landscape. Okay, there is one constant in that, and that is winning Kansas City Chiefs football. Okay, the collegiate teams have waxed and waned. The Royals have just waned. Really, that's been their only phase ahead of this year. So in a sport where you got 17 games in the season, every single game could make or break a season. It really could. There's a big difference between what was it before? I'm still used to the 16 game season, but there's a big difference between 9-7 and 8-8 and 7-9, things like that. So reacting game by game is normal in that. And that's what fans are used to right now. And right now, Jeremy, there's no denying that each win and loss right now is more impactful because of the playoff race. That's just where we're at. So I don't blame the emotions and the outlook ratcheting up. Because if the Royals win tonight against the Tigers, I'm going to be very excited. I'm like, yeah. Like that was it. That was a nail in the Detroit Tigers postseason coffin. That really just put them back, and they will still have a chance, sure, but that chance takes a strong dive if the Royals win this evening. Why do you blame fans though? I want to hear.
Okay, so losing a game, especially the last three losses, have all been very winnable games. I've always found the 12-0 blowouts to be much easier to deal with because it's they're not in it and I have already processed those emotions and I live my life. And it's like you live and die with every pitch when they're as close as the last three games have been. But there's no sense, again, like I was saying kind of at the top, there's no sense of perspective of, listen, more than half of Royals fans, almost all of the Royals review writers said this team will lose more games than it wins this season. That's what everyone said. They are already guaranteed. Even if they lose all 10 of their remaining games, they're guaranteed to win more games than they lose this year. And I think if you told anyone before this season started, the Royals are going to win more games than they lose this year, they would have been very excited about that as Royals fans. But we've lost our perspective a little bit to go, well, now if they don't win the World Series, that's not good enough. If they don't win the division, that's not good enough. They lost 100 games last year. You were asking for an awful lot to sit there and say, well, if they don't win the World Series, then this whole thing was worthless.
Okay. All right. I think that is viable. Frankly, the last time we were talking about Kansas City Royals postseason baseball in a series tone was 2015, when I feel like that was World Series or bust for Kansas City. So that tone
and that was
is
a team that was coming
new.
off of a World Series appearance.
Correct. Which is, and if y'all don't listen to Vern's post-game show on 96.5 The Fan, on Odyssey, wherever you want to pick it up, you're doing yourself a disservice. I have transitioned from listening to, hey, I just want to hear what Vern has to say, to now I'm more listening to what the callers are calling in and talking about, and I want to see what they are talking about. But I forget where I was going with this. He's had a phrase over the past couple of weeks saying that the Royals are playing with house money when it comes to postseason, and they are, and the odds only back that up further, Jeremy. So thank you, Paul, for bringing us those odds every single episode. If you missed it for some reason, you can always rewind. It's the very first thing you hear on the podcast, Jeremy. So I think there is no, what is it? I don't think there's going to be anyone to disagree with us when we say that Tuesday night's loss against the Detroit Tigers was because batting with runners in scoring position. And it's been a big issue.
I would say all three of these losses are due to that.
Yeah. So I don't have all the numbers pulled up in front of me. I have Tuesdays pulled up in front of me. The Royals went 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position, which
I think I saw that the 3 losses, I think I saw in one of the newsletters, it was like 6 for 32.
Yeah, it's just not good. If you go back and look at, I think it was since the Angels series at home, that's when the Royals hit their high water mark, where they were above 300 with runners in scoring position as a team, not just one or two guys. As a team, they got it done, which led the league.
Partially carried by Vinny, Salvi, and Bobby being close to 400.
Exactly. Now, last I checked, they are still in the league lead, but they've just fallen off a cliff.
They're batting in the 280s now instead of over 300, which is still good. But that's a precipitous drop.
Yes, just for that to happen so sharply and steadily late into the season. Like, this isn't early season stats we're talking about where 1 or 2 games could sway things.
Right.
This was dozens of games when to sway it. So it is a problem. It really is. I don't think that we can deny it. But when you go and you look at the lineup and you have Robbie Grossman, who wasn't even on this team August 30th, batting cleanup, just trying to avoid a sweep, like, that doesn't really inspire much confidence in me, Jeremy.
Robbie Grossman does very well against lefties, and the Royals don't have a lot of guys who do well against lefties. So I think there's some logic there. My biggest thing is that when I look at this Royals team, especially the lineup, the pitching not so much, but the lineup is very young. Michael Massey, Michael Garcia, Bobby Witt Jr., Kyle Isbell, all these guys are still pretty young.
Yeah.
And even some of the guys who are older, like Freddie Fermin, Dairon Blanco, are young in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And so do wonder if we're seeing guys press a little bit right now as they're kind of approaching the postseason. And that's one of the things that I'm like, guys, even if the Royals somehow miss the postseason, guys, gals, everybody, even if the Royals somehow miss the postseason, this experience is vital and important for this team to grow.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to see a team that's going to be competitive, not just this year, but in the future, you need a team that has seen this pressure and can adjust to it. Yeah. And right now, I do wonder if they're having trouble adjusting to it. The playoffs are becoming more and more real with every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited for what, even if they're struggling right now, I'm excited for what it can mean next year. I do also have kind of this pet theory that being ice cold right now is actually a good thing for the Royals.
Okay. Why?
Cold streaks can't last forever, just like hot streaks can't last forever. Yeah. So if they're cold right now, maybe they get hot right as the playoffs are starting and make some noise happen in the playoffs. It's a simplistic theory, I'll admit. But I do think that, it's possible. And I'd love to be proven right once again.
Yeah, you have regarding your overall takes for, I think it was like since August with the Royals, you kind of you've been batting above 500 for that.
Well,
So.
I think I did. I think at this point it looks like I've whiffed pretty badly on predicting how the Royals' remaining series would go. I thought they would struggle against the Guardians and the Twins, and I thought they would sweep this Tigers series. So obviously things haven't played out necessarily the way I foresaw there, but maybe predicting individual wins and losses isn't really my strong suit. Maybe I just got to stick to it.
Yeah, it's hey, whatever works for you, man. I am not going to criticize because frankly, some of my, I was way off in my preseason predictions for the Royals, which is a good thing, I guess, when it's like this, because as of right now, the Royals already have the most wins that they've had in a season since 2015. They're above 500, rebounding from a 106 loss season to now securing. I damn near securing a postseason spot. All right, like this is, but Wednesday night's result is going to be absolutely massive. That's one reason why I'm not going to blame fans for their reaction to tonight's game, because this is really, really big. It's a massive difference between what I think they would be. I think there would be 4 games up on Detroit with 9 left, or if they lose tonight, they're only 1 game up on Detroit.
They're currently 3 games up on Detroit. So if they lose tonight, they would still be 2 games up on Detroit.
Okay.
Even if Detroit wins tonight, they still won't be in the playoffs. Even if Detroit wins and the Twins lose, they would still be half a game out of a playoff spot with 9 to go, which is, a lot better than they could be. But I don't know. It's just the Royals are still in really good shape.
Yeah, they are. They are. I look forward to whenever the season ends, we can sit back and we can talk about the overall season, the trends, the improvements, things like that. Right now, I am still thoroughly scoreboard watching and hoping for the Royals to get those like 1, 2, 3 very conclusive wins that finally have me looking at the postseason ticket sale saying, yes, the Royals are going to be there, no doubt. Which, speaking of that, it's kind of hard to keep up with all the scoreboard watching. It really is sometimes. If you need help with that, you can find it over at royalsreview.com, or you can also follow Royals Review on Twitter and Facebook at Royals Review. So, Jeremy, one other thing that I do want to make sure we talk about is Bobby Witt Jr. A huge round of applause to that young man for swiping his 30th stolen base on the season last night, becoming just the first primary shortstop in MLB history with multiple 30 home run and 30 steal seasons after recording 30 homers and 49 steals in 2023. He is just the first... Yeah, he is the first MLB player to have back-to-back 30 home run, 30 stolen base seasons this decade. Last person to do it was Ryan Braun with the Milwaukee Brewers.
Wow.
And
that was a while ago.
It was. It really, really was. And like there was a slew of guys who did it in the mid 2000s, 2005 to 2006. Was Alfonso Soriano. Vladimir Guerrero Sr. did it in 01 to 02. It's still an incredible feat, but like in modern baseball even, it's even more special, I think.
Yeah, the pitchers back then were throwing in the mid 90s was really hard, and now it feels like almost everybody can hit triple digits.
Yeah.
When Aroldis Chapman first came into the league, he was special as a guy who could throw 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. And now every team has at least one guy that can do it. And most of them have more than one guy who can do it. And the idea of a starter throwing 100 was just absolutely wild. And now, like, they do it. It happens.
Yes. I'm going to leave up the MVP talk to other folks right now. We just talked about that a couple of weeks ago. It has been all over just baseball in general discourse, which is a great thing to see as a Royals fan, to have your guy in that conversation. One thing that I do want to point out again to our listeners is the Royals are 55-32 when Bobby crosses home plate and scores a run. They are 27-38 when he does not do that. That's just one of those things I think is getting overlooked in the MVP conversation personally. But he's just kind of fallen back to earth in August. He really has.
Looks like just a really good player instead of the best player of all time. How dare he?
Well, I mean, even if you look at since, I want to say it was since like August 30th, August 29th, like he's an average batter, not just
with above average speed and an above average glove still.
Yes, still. But right now with Vinny out of the lineup, the Royals really need that bat.
I think if you offered September Bobby Witt to any team, you're like, this is the guy. This is who he is. I think at least half the teams in baseball would be like, gimme.
Yeah, they would. I am in no way saying that he is bad, but I am saying that I would really prefer to have that
for sure
red magma hot Bobby Witt Jr. to secure his postseason
I'm just
berth.
trying to contextualize things a little bit.
Yeah, screw nuance and context and yada, yada, yada. You can keep that up to yourself. But all in all, just a great season from him. And I am hopeful that he gets the recognition he deserves come the postseason. Speaking of some recognition, so we didn't talk about it on last time I was on, and I don't believe you talked about it on all with Greg, but Salvador Perez is once again the Roberto Clemente Award nominee from the Kansas City Royals. Now that is, listen, we've heard all the good stories about Salvi and his impact in the community and things like that. But Jeremy, the question that you were pursuing is what did Roberto Clemente do to have this award named after him?
So everyone kind of knows the story. Roberto Clemente got exactly 3,000 hits. He was known as a very generous and charitable person who gave of his time, money, and energy to support other people. But we don't often, I think, talk about the details. Everybody knows the story of his plane crash in 72 when he was flying relief supplies to Nicaragua, who had just suffered just an absolutely devastating earthquake. And I thought I saw some stuff and I was like, man, why we don't talk about like what did Roberto Clemente do beyond that? Because he did more than that. And I thought it was interesting, kind of the results I came up with. So first of all, Jacob, do you know why Roberto Clemente was on that airplane to begin with?
No, I genuinely don't.
So that was actually the fourth plane that Roberto Clemente had commissioned and overstuffed with supplies to send down to Nicaragua. But there was an issue that was reported to Clemente that the president of Nicaragua, or the general, the dictator of Nicaragua, was stealing the supplies. Now, a U.S.-led commission suggested that was not happening. They researched and said that absolutely wasn't happening. But as far as Clemente knew, it was happening. And the third plane, when it returned, said, listen, I told them the great Roberto Clemente sent these supplies down here, so don't steal them. And they didn't. So Clemente said, well, then I better go with the next flight. So Roberto Clemente was only going down there because those supplies were being stolen. Now, I said that the U.S. government said that those supplies weren't being stolen, but this guy who was running this country, there's no question he was a dictator, that he was a bad guy, killed people, did things, bribed people, all kinds of stuff. And there's also no question that the U.S. supported him. He went to West Point. When he had a heart attack late in his life, he went to the United States to just kind of hang out and chill and recover. But like, Roberto Clemente died not just because he was a charitable person, but because the U.S. was backing a dictator in Central America because they were afraid that the communists would take over if they let, politics and what's it called? free and fair elections happen instead of backing this guy. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking like I genuinely, that's something like I wasn't taught about at all in school.
There's a huge history of the United States meddling in Central America, South America, and the Middle East because of the Russians. Just decades and decades of America supporting bad people because they were afraid that if they didn't support bad people, that the Russians would get their hands on territory, and they didn't want the Russians to have it, including Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, I know about that.
So there's all kinds of fun stuff that happens there. But another thing that I thought was really interesting about Roberto Clemente is how much he stood against racism and for diversity. He was obviously he was from, I believe he's from Puerto Rico, if I'm remembering correctly. I really feels like something I should know, but he was definitely Latino. He was definitely dark skinned. And so when he came to America proper, he, discovered that there was still a lot of racism happening. And sure, MLB said, oh, we've integrated. That's one of the things MLB loves to go, Jackie Robinson, everything's fine since Jackie Robinson. But when Roberto Clemente showed up, his team was still requiring its Black and Latin players to wait in the bus after games while the white men went in and had dinner at a restaurant, and then they would bring food out to those players after the game. And Roberto Clemente said, nah, we're not doing that anymore. And actually got the team to provide a station wagon, because that's how few players of color they had on the team, was that they could all fit in a station wagon, and then they could drive to a restaurant that would serve them. And of course, the team still didn't, just go to restaurants where everybody could be served, but he still forced some change, something closer to equality to happen. In his time there. What also I don't often hear anyone talk about is that he and his teammates forced a delay to the beginning of the 1968 season.
Really?
Because that was when Martin Luther King had been assassinated, and his funeral was due to occur on April 9th. And the team was supposed to open, the Pirates were supposed to open a series with the Astros on April 8th. And he and several of his teammates went and said, yeah, we can't play until the 10th. And eventually the Pirates said, all right, fine, and gave in. And then all of MLB said, well, we don't want everybody else to start, saying they won't play. So they delayed the entire start of the season until April 10th that year.
Gotcha.
Out of respect for Martin Luther King Jr. And finally, Roberto Clemente was known for his charity, but what kinds of charity was he doing other than flying relief supplies to Nicaragua? One of the things he was known to do was donate to Black Panther causes, including breakfast programs and health clinics. And I was actually recently watching a video on just what the Black Panther Party got up to. And I know that I was raised to believe that the Black Panthers were violent and kind of terrorists and bad people. And certainly violence was a part of what they did. It was also a huge part of why change happened. And Martin Luther King was not the pacifist that some people would suggest that he was either. But they also had programs that did things like provide ambulance services for Black people for free, because the white ambulances wouldn't always take people to the hospitals that they needed to go to. There was a gunshot victim that led to that happening, actually, because, Black people being shot by white people was still a thing now, but it was still a thing then too. And then they also had programs. Another one I saw was that they had programs for like maintenance, free home maintenance for people, just because there were all kinds of pest infestations in Houston and such that they couldn't get everybody to handle and help them with. And it's a health issue. So just keep in mind that when people talk about Roberto Clemente, they're not going to talk about his ties to the Black Panthers because they're so invested in demonizing the Black Panthers. And well, we're going to laud Roberto Clemente because they decided that was a thing to do, but they don't want to admit that, oh, well, maybe these other people that Roberto Clemente was associated with weren't so bad either.
It is, I'm trying to think how to word this. A lot of positive impacts on an individual's life can come from the places that narratives would have you least expect it. I think it's the way to put it.
History And especially when it's corporatized history. So like, we're just going to give, they have this one quote from Roberto Clemente that they love to throw out there of a day where I could have helped someone and I didn't. I can't remember the exact quote, I'm paraphrasing. A day where I could have helped someone and I didn't is a waste, something like that. And then they were throwing that quote out all weekend while the Royals were in Pittsburgh for Roberto Clemente Day. But that's just a very small part of what Clemente did. He didn't just talk about charity, he lived it. And he lived it in the streets, he lived it internationally. Because let's not forget that, like, supporting Nicaragua after that earthquake was a big deal. That was international support that he was offering, when so many Americans these days would say, oh, no, let's not support these other countries that are dealing with all their crises. We got to save all of our money and time and effort for ourselves. And we certainly can't allow immigrants or refugees into this country. We got to save all our resources for ourselves. And that's not the kind of mindset that Roberto Clemente would have had either. He wanted to help everyone wherever they were. And he did help everyone wherever they were as best he could. He didn't just talk it, he lived it.
One asterisk that I do want to add to this, specifically when it comes to the Black Panther Party, when we were talking about the group that Clemente was working with and involved with, it is the original Black Panther Party. That is not as now is commonly known as the new Black Panther Party. The first iteration dissolved in 1982. The new Black Panther Party, which is deemed as a terrorist organization, was founded in 1989 and doesn't do a whole lot of the good stuff that their namesake did, apparently.
Interesting. See, no one ever told me there was a difference there were multiple Black Panther parties. So I'm still learning things too.
Yes, it is, according to the Huey P. Newton Foundation, who Newton was the first leader of the original Black Panther Party. He's either the first or the last. I'm getting them mixed up. They very much said this is not an official successor to the Black Panther Party, and, quote, there is no new Black Panther Party, even though the organization claims that they are. All right, so it is that, you know, here you are talking about nuance and context when it comes to Royals baseball. That is a good thing to have when it comes to the Clemente Award. So if you are interested in casting your lot and supporting Salvador Perez when it comes to his pursuit for the Roberto Clemente Award, you can go read up on his bio. You can go cast your ballot on MLB.com. Jeremy, listen, before we get to reviews, I do want to say we are at this point in the MLB season where a team is what it is. I don't think there's any change that is going to happen in the next 10 games that is going to propel the Kansas City Royals from a wild card team to a leading World Series contender.
I mean, other than potentially winning the ALCS.
Other than that, I'm talking about as we sit here today. But what I'm trying to get at is, stay out of my goddamn mentions about them signing Craig Kimbrell, okay? That's not happening.
Isn't Kimbrell still with the Orioles?
No, he got designated for assignment today.
Oh, well, here's the thing, y'all. If they signed Kimbrell, he couldn't help the team in the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
It's post waiver deadline. That was August 31st. That was why they made all those moves on August 31st.
Precisely. So, one, he can't do it. And number two, I don't think, even if that rule didn't exist, I don't think he would help the team. Baltimore.
If the Orioles can't use him, what do you think he's going to do for the Royals?
Exactly. The Orioles are in the postseason picture too. They don't trust him. Why the hell should the Royals?
They're also struggling right now.
Yes.
They could use a little bit of help too.
They absolutely could. They absolutely could. So please, listen, Craig Kimbrell, Hall of Famer. He is absolutely sliding in 2024. Does not look like the Hall of Famer. And unfortunately, this might be the end of his career. I think it is.
If he wants to keep pitching, someone will give him another chance next year. But let me put it this way. Nobody wants James MacArthur anymore, correct? Am I correct in that assessment?
Yes, you are. Absolutely correct.
Yeah, James MacArthur, 4.92 ERA.
Oh boy, what's
Craig
Kimbrell's? Yeah,
0.33 ERA.
See, what are we doing? a name is not going to fix things on the field.
They have, now you could be like, well, maybe Kimbrel's better. They have similar Sierras, which according to my research is the most predictive pitching stat that we've got right now. So yeah, maybe he could be better. But James McArthur could maybe be better too. True. Now, James McArthur's hurt. He's on the IL, probably not pitching again this year. That's fine. I'm just saying, you all are ready to fire James McArthur into the sun. Every time somebody writes an article, Kevin O'Brien wrote an article, Royals reporter Kev wrote an article saying, don't give up on McArthur for next year. I've repeatedly said on this podcast, on Royals Review, on social media, saying James McArthur is struggling right now, but I even made the comparison to Joakim Soria where I said, I don't think this is bad pitching. I think this is just bad results, bad luck, and that you see him next year, he's going to look a lot better the way that Joakim Soria did the year after he was everyone's punching bag for the Royals. Just, I name recognition isn't everything, okay? It's just not. And Kimbrel is not who he used to be. So just let it go.
Yes. Some other notes that we should have touched on earlier on, but we didn't. Listening to Josh Vernier talk earlier on today on 96.5 The Fan. Doesn't sound like a whole lot of optimism behind Hunter Harvey in the postseason. We haven't heard a peep about him
pitching.
No, he's still not pitching. He's in the dugout, which is something, but I don't think he's going to see the mound come October. Michael Lorenzen is an interesting one. Because I believe it was either today or yesterday, scheduled to throw a bullpen. So we'll see how that goes.
Hopefully we'll get an update on him then soon.
Hopefully
maybe during tonight's broadcast.
But I think the frustrating thing about that now is, okay, let's say he's ready for a rehab start. Where the hell is he going to go throw a rehab start? The minor league.
He's going to have simulated games. That's all you can do at this point.
Exactly. So I'm hoping.
Throw some live BP.
Probably so. I'm hoping that we have Lorenzen back in the fold.
That would be nice. It would be a huge boon. One of the things everyone has said is, Royals can't win with this bullpen. Well, they don't plan to have this bullpen come the playoffs. Alec Marsh should be in the bullpen.
Correct.
Michael Lorenzen in the bullpen. Brady Singer maybe in the bullpen. It's going to be a whole different. They were hoping Hunter Harvey would be in the bullpen. That does seem extremely unlikely now.
Yep.
So there a lot can change once you get to the postseason.
And personally, I'm still holding out hope that somehow Steven Cruz makes the postseason roster.
At this point, it seems possible.
Yeah, he was recalled from AAA Omaha once James McArthur hit the 15-day IL with some tightness, which is never good. But Steven Cruz still hasn't made another appearance for the Royals. He has, and all in all, he has looked very, very good in AAA. And he had a short stint with the Royals this year, August 28th through the 5th, and he retired all 10 batters he faced over that span. So, I mean, that's what you want your bullpen to do.
Struck out the only guy he saw last night.
Exactly. Stranded 2 runners, if I recall correctly. So I think that was a very pivotal and a very strong return from him.
I would also like to throw out there that Carlos Hernandez has a 0 ERA in the month of September. He has 6 appearances, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, 2 walks, 5 hits. So it's a little bit over 1 whip, which is not what you really want from a reliever. But he's only allowed 2 base runners twice in that span. Again, no runs.
Yeah.
So, and more strikeouts than innings too. So he could get some more leverage innings as we're going on here too.
He could. And outside of Sam Long on Monday, these past few games, I haven't had any qualms with the bullpen. Jeremy, this is probably something I should have brought up earlier on, but it's something we need to talk about. What did you think about Q trying to push Lucas Erceg beyond 1 inning?
He's working for the playoffs right now. That today mantra is, and only today, I want to win this game. And this is what we saw starting in that final New York game where didn't we see Bubic go for 2 innings and then we saw Erceg go for 2 innings? So he's stretching guys out and saying, listen, however many outs you got to get them because we got to get these outs. The bullpen again last night, obviously it didn't work out with Urseg in the 10th, but it's also like it gives you information for when the playoffs, like, should I try and get 2 innings from Urseg on a regular basis, or should I try really hard to keep him to 1? And it worked in New York. It didn't work last night. So, you're getting kind of some mixed results. It's not a guarantee. He's gaining information and he's trying to win every single game right now, whatever he can do to make that happen. And Mike Matheny had that whole thing of like, win, you got to play to win every game, but that can burn guys out real fast. I think Hugh has stepped on the throttle at the correct moment and is really pushing his guys now as we go down the stretch. The interesting thing is it's not necessarily working. So maybe shouldn't be. Maybe that is the information he's gathering as the Royals barrel towards a playoff berth.
Maybe so. Maybe so. And I think results withstanding from Urseg going more than 1 inning, I didn't like the move. I personally didn't. I want, like, there are some guys who just are what they are. And I can trust Lucas Urseg to get 3 outs, 4 outs. Like in that range, but you're not going to trot him out there for another inning unless the matchup calls for it, in my opinion. Especially
who are you going to go to instead of Lucas Urseg for a second inning?
Well, because for a second inning, like in any situation.
I mean, last night, you've already used Chris Bubich.
Yep.
So that's your only guy that you're like, that's the guy. That's your only other one.
I don't have the splits and the matchups put in front of me. I would have looked to Carlos Hernandez. I would have even looked to John Schreiber, who hasn't given up a run and only 2 hits since September the 1st. There are other righties. If that was why Q made the call he did, is because he wanted a righty on the mound. There were other righties in that situation that they could have turned to. I
would like to throw out there that Urseg has thrown 2 innings 3 times this year before last night when he only managed 1 2/3. Didn't give up a run in any of those appearances.
Okay.
He's pitched more than 1 inning. I don't have the time to add them all up right now, but many, many times and given up 0 runs. He has proven throughout the season that he can get more than 3 outs. It just didn't work yesterday. And here's the other thing is that it almost did. It almost did.
Yeah, almost.
Because the runner starts at second, so that already puts you in a dangerous spot for giving up a run.
Yeah.
And if you take away that balk, Craig Brown made a really compelling argument in Into the Fountains today. If you take away that walk, that pop-up that turned into an RBI single in the left field, that might be actually a catch by Bobby Witt Jr., and that changes the whole complexion of that inning. Bobby catches that ball and there's 2 outs and a runner on second instead of 1 out and a runner on first and a run's already in.
Okay. I mean, very valid. Very true. All right, let's go ahead and get on to our Royals reviews, where we sit down, talk about one random thing that we want to give a review. I think my last review was on water, which I'm going to move on from. My quick review today is on a Netflix movie called The Deliverance. If you haven't seen that yet, it's a horror movie, basically like a more what.
I don't do horror.
Yeah, you're not a horror guy. We've talked about that a few times. It is, Jeremy. I'm gonna dumb it down, and you're gonna roll your eyes.
Yes, I will roll your eyes, Jacob.
Black version of The Exorcist. Like there's a lot. The pacing of the story is very similar. You have kids getting possessed by a house, and they want the soul, and it's a portal to hell and stuff like that. I saw a lot of parallels there, except this one's based on a true story. So that was very interesting. But like all in all, it was okay. Like it's worth a watch. Probably not going to go up on my shelf of like, hey, I should pull this one out every Halloween and rewatch it when I'm in the mood. It was okay. really. So that's the Deliverance on Netflix. Jeremy, on to you.
So I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I had started playing Rush, and I gave kind of a preview review. And one of the things I remember saying was that I found the game exhausting, and that did not continue. That was I had at that point one play session where I was still kind of getting into the rhythm, pun intended, of playing the game, which is a rhythm action game. And after that, the rhythm came a little bit more naturally to me, and I had a lot of fun with it. It is the story dumb in all of the best ways, and the characters are really charming, and the art style is really interesting. What I love about this game more than anything is that it's not just really good, it's really good and extremely unique. It is a concept I have not seen anyone even attempt to execute in that way of a rhythm action game. And I was really, before I played it, I was very curious as to how that could possibly work. Everyone kept telling me this is a great game, and I'm like, that just doesn't seem like it could work, but it does. It really does. It's carried by soundtrack that is not necessarily something that you're like, yeah, I want to listen to all these songs just for fun all the time, like I've done with Kingdom Hearts, Persona, other things. But it is a soundtrack that very well suits this game. First of all, rhythm is so important. The songs all have very strong rhythm to them without just being drums or something. And it ends up being a lot of fun. I'm sitting here playing through the post game still now, working on seeing if I can earn that platinum trophy. It's going to be a grind, and it's going to be challenging, but I'm going to at least attempt it because I do like to earn my platinum trophies.
Okay.
And if you're remotely curious about it, I would recommend going out and giving it a try. And what I find now is that I'm just absolutely baffled that Xbox had this game come from the Bethesda published it after Xbox bought them. And then Xbox tried to close Tango Gearworks, the studio that made this game. They were like, yeah, sure, you made a game that was a Game of the Year contender, Game of the Year winner in a lot of circles. It was profitable. It was great, but you didn't make enough money, and it's single player, not multiplayer. So we're going to close you. And the studio got saved. I don't remember exactly how that all went down. The studio was not closed. I hope that we'll see a Hi-Fi Rush 2 someday. I think there's lots of room to continue to explore this concept. It's really cool. It's really fun. It's really clever, both in gameplay and in writing. And again, like everything just melds together in a way where it becomes more than the sum of its parts. And the parts are still really good. So I absolutely recommend it for anyone who is even remotely considered playing it. It's a lot of fun.
Hell yeah. Okay, that is once again, that's Hi-Fi Rush. Thank you for that, Jeremy. I'm going to add an addendum onto my review because I just now saw it. They dropped it earlier on today. I'm looking forward to the November 2nd iteration of Saturday Night Live because John Mulaney is going to be hosting with the musical guest Chappell Roan. So that's a very timely pairing and one of my favorites. Honey and I saw Mulaney in Norfolk not too long ago, so we're big fans of his. All right, we're going to go ahead and get on out of here. That is going to wrap it up for today's Royals Rundown podcast. If you want to follow along with us on social media, please feel free to do so. My email is also down in the podcast description. Thank you, Yoni, for reaching out and making your voice be heard. So
apparently my email's somewhere around too, because I got copied into that. I'm not sure where my email was that it got found, but cool.
Yeah, exactly.
I was on the internet from a very young age and didn't really understand the whole concept of my footprint is old and it is heavy and it is deep. So I'm used to people just finding me that way. This is not a surprise to me anymore. But yeah, so if you find my email, you can email me too, for sure.
And hey, if you like the podcast, we would really appreciate a positive review. We're getting more negative than positives nowadays, unfortunately. So, but y'all,
that's probably my fault.
Y'all keep listening, so y'all must like the podcast. If you do, please leave us a review on your respective platform. Once again, my name is Jacob Milham. He is Jeremy Greco. We're going to go watch some Royals baseball. So until next time, go Royals!